Hello, I'm Cam, welcome back to our second channel video. So as you all are probably aware by now, I like to discuss travel a lot here, both because it's how a lot of people discover, learning new things about the world and discover this channel as a whole, because you're interested in learning about the new culture you might be traveling to at some point. I like to indulge that, it's how I learn about a lot of things, but also second of all, it's interesting to see how different countries have different transport infrastructures that vary so wildly between them. So, for instance, rail is a much more common form of transport between cities in Europe, whereas in the United States of America, it's almost seen as like a joke, like, oh yeah, take the Amtrak. Because fun fact, in the United States of America, there is one nationalized rail company. It's called Amtrak. It was set up by Richard Nixon of all people, I believe. And the craziest thing about Amtrak is that they have a lot of things that they do really well, like the Northeast Corridor in places, and a lot of things they do so horrifically badly, I did not believe. When I first read these things, I was like, yeah, of course that's real. But no, these, I looked into them, I've confirmed. I'll have sources just to reconfirm for you. There are two absurdly horrific, confusing policies, especially if you're European, that I wanted to go through and talk about in today's video to do with Amtrak. The first one is how Amtrak deals with time changes. The way Amtrak handles the time changing, which it does twice a year in most countries, there is a daylight savings time where you move the time forwards in March, it's about to happen actually, and then you move it back again in the full season, in October, November, depending on your country. But basically, so the clock goes forwards and backwards. How do transport companies handle this? And there's lots of different methods for lots of different companies. Sometimes they have different schedules for different halves of the year. Sometimes they change it on the 2 days so you can know like, oh, things will change here. How does Amtrak deal with it? They literally do not. Their timetable is exactly the same all year round. And you might be like, wow, that's really clever. They managed to get the logistics going there. No, they didn't manage to get the logistics going there. Let me explain further. So this is from their timetable themselves. This is how they word it. Amtrak operates according to prevailing local time, either standard time or daylight savings time. At the spring time change, second Sunday in March, Amtrak trains traveling overnight will become 1 hour late and will attempt to make up the time. At the full time change, first Sunday in November, Amtrak trains traveling overnight will normally hold at the next station after the time change and then depart on time. So just to clarify what was said there, because again, I really cannot stress how absurd that is. When daylight saving happens and the clock springs forwards, every Amtrak train is immediately 1 hour late. Any Amtrak train currently operating immediately is like, oh, we're going to be an hour late to the destination. Instead of fixing the time of the arrival, they just say, oh, I guess we're an hour late there now. And given that Amtrak trains are so late normally, an hour late train isn't actually too bad. So people just accept it like, oh, I guess the train's going to be an hour late here, which it's just absurd, right? Like people are going to be waiting at the station and then realize their train is now late if they don't know this tiny footnote on the policy. And then the reverse situation is, oh, clock's going back an hour, guess we're going to wait at this station for 1 full hour. These journeys can be like, 7, 8, even 40, 50 hours across the country, and it's just like, we're going to wait here for an hour because time changes and scheduling's hard, so we're not going to. That is real Amtrak policy on the real Amtrak website, and I did not believe it, and that's why I wanted to share it, because can you imagine anything being so badly planned? I think, okay, that's kind of bad by itself, but what about how Amtrak deals with border changes? So, when it comes to, again, the United States rail as a whole, let's say, there is only one connection to another country that passengers can actually buy tickets for, and that is between the US and Canada. Canada and the US are perhaps each other's, closest friends when it comes to border crossings, but they still take it very seriously, and you might be like, okay, so there's trains that go from New York to Toronto, and Toronto to New York. How do these trains work? So, I guess what you'd have to do is in the same way you do it with the channel in Europe, you do the border formalities before you get on the train, and given that the US has something called pre-border clearance, oh, that'd be really easy. You just go through the pre-border clearance and then, you can get off where you want to. How wonderful. We've got a solution right there. No, here's a video they put out to try and explain the process. This is Amtrak making it look as glamorous as possible to explain it to you. You get off the train, it looks like here, right on the side of the tracks, just hop off the train with your baggage. You go through the Canada border control, which, that's kind of fine. They'll search your bags, which, again, looks kind of rough here. Okay, you get your bag searched again. It's like airport security, but midway through a train journey, which, by the way, the train's just stuck during this whole time. You're just wasting time that could have been spent elsewhere, but, that's fine. The train's just stuck there while you do that. And then here's the weirdest bit. Again, this sounds absurd, but instead of getting permission to operate into Canada, instead of getting full-time visas for their staff, what they instead do is when the Amtrak train hits the border, the Amtrak staff get off. I don't know how they get back. Maybe they wait for the next train to come across and they do the reverse. And Via Rail staff, that's the Canadian nationalized rail passenger company, they take over the train. A Via Rail driver gets on the train, a Via Rail conductor gets on the train, and that is a real thing. They share it. They share information about suspicious passengers too. There's this really dramatic scene about, like, if you fear human trafficking, be sure to let the person know. And it's just like, yep, this is the real system. What happens when the Amtrak train gets to a border? Well, all the staff get off, and then the Canadian staff get on, because of course that's how it's going to work. That's a different country. Amtrak can't operate there. It's absurd, but it's real. When you go from New York to Toronto, you literally have to get off the train to go through the border control. And the reason for this, in case you're curious, is because some people on that train are going to US stops. So to make it so that you only go through border control when necessary, you do that. But it's like, is there no better way to handle this? And the answer to that question is apparently not. So how does Amtrak deal with time changes? It doesn't. How does Amtrak deal with the country changing? Well, there's lots of sophisticated solutions, but they just do the minimum possible. They get to the border, they get off the train, and then they let some Canadians take over because it's not their train anymore. So yeah, fun fact with Toycat, how do Amtrak in America, again, rail in the United States is a really fascinating part of the country's history. The Transcontinental Railroad is one of the things that defined American history in some ways. We learned about it even in our schools over here. But the fascinating thing is that rail today is kind of a joke in a lot of ways. It's not very well funded for a whole bunch of different reasons. And one of the parts of the fact that no one seems to care is the fact that you just end up with situations like this. And just as a fun little addition here, because when the Chicago Tribune asked the manager of Amtrak, so what's the deal with that time change thing? You know, like, this is annoying. There's a lot of Amtrak trains in Illinois, for instance. And his response was, it's a rather confusing procedure unless you spend a lot of time pondering it, and not many people do. That's the response there. Like, well, I mean, you might think it's stupid, but the more you think about it, the smarter it really is. And that's why we do it, because it's really smart when you really think about it. And I really thought about it, and it's not very smart. This was a quick video because this is just the most absurd thing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. Go check out the Reddit, reddit.com/r/toycat. That's for this channel. I know I've got two Reddits, it's confusing. Or you can click a link in the description if you do like traveling. I recommend, there's a hotels.com link, which is, it's the booking site I actually use. You get, like, if you're curious, every YouTuber recommends booking.com or Airbnb. You get huge fees there. On hotels.com, it's something tiny. It's like 4% or something if you click that link. But I recommend it anyway because it's the one that has the best loyalty program, it's the one with the best rewards program, and the one with the lowest prices based on all of my comparisons. So hotels.com, check it out. If you have a hotel you gotta go to. Thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you to the guest editor again. We've been doing a lot of these, but this is there's a link in the description. I fear I'll say it wrong on the spot. But thank you to him, and second channel, don't care. Goodbye.
Okay, I appreciate your sense of caution, but for future reference, it's pronounced Canibus.